Little girl stops, billionaire woman wedding, reveals shocking truth about the groom, she calls police. Before we jump in, this story has captivated hearts across continents. Tell us, where are you watching from? Your voice matters. The late afternoon. Sun filtered through the towering windows of the Grand Plaza Hotel in New York City, cast long golden streaks across the opulent ballroom. Maya Sharma, small for her 7 years, sat cross-legged on a plush velvet settee in a quiet alcove, her fingers meticulously arranging a collection of colorful geodes. These sparkling treasures were souvenirs from countless adventures with her father, Dr. Alok Sharma, Evelyn's late husband, and a brilliant, often eccentric astrophysicist. Maya missed him terribly. His passing 2 years ago had left a void that even her loving mother, Dr. Evelyn Reed, couldn't completely fill. Evelyn, a self-made tech billionaire, the visionary CEO of Luminary Labs, was a force of nature, brilliant, driven, and usually perfectly composed. "Maya, sweetheart, could you come downstairs? Julian and I have something important to tell you." Maya recognized the unusual lightness in her mother's voice. Evelyn, typically focused and precise, rarely expressed such overt excitement. But Julian Thorne, the charismatic and handsome financier who had entered their lives 6 months ago, seemed to possess an uncanny ability to melt Evelyn's guarded exterior. He was a whirlwind of charm, a master of sophisticated flattery, and seemed to anticipate Evelyn's every unspoken desire. As Maya descended the grand marble staircase leading to the hotel's private lounge, she saw her mother standing beside Julian. Evelyn, poised in a designer power suit, radiated elegance. But her eyes, usually sharp and analytical, held a dreamy softness whenever she looked at Julian. He was impeccably dressed in a bespoke suit, his smile dazzling, almost too perfect. "There's my bright star," Evelyn said, her smile stretching wider than Maya had seen in months. Evelyn gestured to Julian. "Maya, I'd like you to meet Julian Thorne properly. You know him from our dinners." Julian knelt, extending a manicured hand. "It's so wonderful to finally speak with you, Maya. Your mother talks about you constantly. She says you have her brilliance and your father's curiosity." His voice was smooth, a comforting baritone. But Maya felt an odd prickle on her skin, a familiar uneasiness. It was the same feeling she got when a new tutor tried too hard to be her friend. Evelyn's eyes beamed as she put a hand on Maya's shoulder. "Julian and I have something wonderful to tell you, darling. We're getting married. This Saturday, right here at the Grand Plaza." A tight knot formed in Maya's stomach. Married? It felt too soon, too sudden. Her mother, usually so cautious and calculating in business, had been swept up in a whirlwind romance. Julian had charmed Evelyn with tales of his philanthropic ventures in emerging markets, his shared passion for scientific innovation, and his sophisticated taste in art, conveniently moving into a penthouse suite just floors below theirs. Marcus, Evelyn's loyal head of security, an ex-military man with an almost psychic ability to sense trouble, cleared his throat. He was standing discreetly by the door, his arms crossed. "It's all happening rather quickly, isn't it, Dr. Reed?" His tone was professional, but his eyes, fixed on Julian, held a hint of suspicion. Julian laughed, a rich, confident sound. "Love often moves quickly, dear Marcus. When it's right, why delay?" "Indeed," Evelyn agreed, oblivious to the subtle tension. "Julian has brought so much joy back into our lives, Maya. I want us to be a family again." Maya forced a small smile, but the knot tightened. Ms. Albright, Evelyn's longtime executive assistant, a stern woman whose loyalty was as deep as her efficiency, had also expressed her quiet reservations. "Something about him, Maya," she'd whispered in the executive lounge one evening. "Too smooth, like a hologram that hasn't quite solidified." That night, sleep eluded Maya. She lay in bed, listening to the muffled sounds of the bustling city below. She remembered her father's laugh, the way he used to tell her to trust her observations. "Your eyes see things before your mind processes them, my little scientist," he'd say. And her eyes, coupled with her gut, were screaming. Over the next few days. The Grand Plaza buzzed with wedding preparations. Julian was everywhere, directing caterers, inspecting floral arrangements, his laughter echoing through the opulent halls. But Maya noticed things, small, unsettling details. She'd seen him once, in a deserted hallway, speaking intensely on a burner phone, his voice low and sharp. "The timeline hasn't changed, Silas. Just after the ceremony. No, during the reception. Her foundation accounts will be vulnerable then." She'd also seen him slip a small, worn photograph from his wallet once. It showed a different man, younger, with a harder gaze, standing next to a stern-looking man. Julian had quickly hidden it when he saw Maya, his dazzling smile faltering for a split second. And then there were the strange financial documents Maya accidentally saw on Evelyn's desk. Loan agreements, lines of credit, all in Evelyn's name, but for amounts that seemed unrelated to any known projects. Evelyn had recently been making large transfers to various shell corporations, investments Julian had enthusiastically recommended. "Just securing our future, darling," he'd told her. But Maya's father, a stickler for transparency in financial dealings, had taught her about due diligence. These transfers felt murky, almost predatory. One afternoon, while Julian was out for a golf game with potential investors, Maya slipped into his penthouse suite. Ms. Albright, feigning a need to deliver urgent documents, created a distraction for the hotel staff. Maya found a hidden compartment behind a loose panel in the grand fireplace. Inside, tucked beneath layers of expensive silk scarves, was a small, dusty box. Her heart pounded as she opened it. The contents sent a chill down her spine, a faded driver's license with Julian's photo, but the name Jeremy Thorne and a criminal record printout. Jeremy Thorne, convicted of grand larceny, fraud, and embezzlement, served 5 years in federal prison, released just 3 years ago. There were also old photos of Julian, as Jeremy, with a rugged-looking man, clearly Silas Croft, in what appeared to be various stages of scams. Smiling with shady bank officials, signing fraudulent documents for defunct companies. And then, a recent photo. Julian, in the elegant suit he wore often around Evelyn, embracing Silas in front of a modest, run-down apartment building, not his supposed international investment firm's headquarters. "Your mother's trust? It's a gold mine, Maya. A gold mine for my future. And I'm about to claim it." Julian's words, spoken with a cruel smirk just yesterday when Maya had tried to subtly question him about a discrepancy in his travel stories, echoed in her mind. She sees what she wants to see. Billionaires like Evelyn, so used to controlling everything, are blind to what's right in front of them when it comes to love. Maya quickly photographed everything with her tablet. She knew she had to get this to her mother, but Evelyn was so enamored, so completely swept up in the fantasy Julian had woven. She'd dismissed Maya's vague concerns with gentle pats on the head and reassurances. Curiosity, Maya, can lead to very unfortunate coincidences. Sometimes the most inconvenient obstacles simply disappear. Julian had said that to her last night, his voice a low, chilling purr, after Maya had accidentally left her tablet, unlocked on a page about famous financial scams. Maya showed the evidence to Marcus and Ms. Albright. Marcus's face went from stone-faced to a mask of grim determination. "I knew it. That man's a snake." Ms. Albright, ever pragmatic, immediately called Detective Isabella Rossi, a sharp, empathetic detective known for her quiet efficiency and keen understanding of financial crimes. Detective Rossi, seeing the gravity of the situation and the undeniable proof, assured them she would discreetly involve the police. "We'll need to do this carefully, Maya," she said, her voice firm but reassuring. Your mother needs to see this with her own eyes without giving him time to destroy anything. The wedding day dawned bright and clear, mocking the storm brewing within Maya. The Grand Plaza Hotel buzzed with excitement. Guests, dressed in their finest, filled the opulent ballroom. Evelyn, radiant in her exquisite couture gown, stood at the altar, a joyous smile on her face as she awaited her groom. Maya, impeccably dressed in a tiny white dress, stood beside, her mother, a weighty envelope hidden in her inner jacket pocket. Julian Thorne glided down the aisle, a vision in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his smile dazzling, his eyes sweeping over the crowd. He looked every inch the perfect, loving groom. As he reached the altar, Evelyn took his hands, her eyes full of adoration. The officiant began the ceremony, her voice sonorous and comforting. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Dr. Evelyn Reed and Julian Thorne. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. Now or never. She thought of her father's legacy, her mother's vulnerability, the future she needed to protect. Her small hand trembled as she reached into her pocket. The officiant continued. If anyone present knows of any just cause or impediment why these two persons should not be joined together in holy matrimony, let them speak now or else forever. Hold their peace. Silence. A pregnant, expectant silence. This was her chance. I do. Maya's voice, small but clear, cut through the reverent hush. Every head in the ballroom whipped towards her. Evelyn's eyes, wide with shock, turned to her daughter. Julian's dazzling smile froze, then slowly morphed into a look of pure, unadulterated fury. Maya, what on earth? Evelyn whispered, her face a mixture of confusion and embarrassment. Julian's eyes, now devoid of warmth, bore into Maya. The child is clearly unwell. Perhaps she needs to be taken out. His voice was low, menacing, a stark contrast to his earlier smooth tone. A child's imaginings are just that, imaginings. Against my carefully constructed truth, they dissolve into thin air. She's not unwell, Marcus's voice boomed from the front row, stepping forward. She's got proof. Maya pulled the photographs, the prison record, and the forged documents from the envelope, her hands shaking, but her resolve iron strong. His name isn't Julian Thorne. He's Jeremy Thorne, and he's a criminal. He was in prison for fraud. He's stealing from you, Mom. She held up the criminal record printout, its official seal visible even from a distance. Then she flashed the photos. Jeremy Thorne with Silas Croft, the two of them seemingly inseparable, engaged in dubious financial transactions for defunct companies. A collective gasp rippled through the stunned crowd. Evelyn's eyes, still fixed on Julian, slowly widened in horror. Her face, once beaming, now contorted into a mask of disbelief, then a terrible burning rage. Is this true, Julian? Her voice was a low growl, barely recognizable. Julian's composure shattered. This is ridiculous. Lies! The child is disturbed, Evelyn. She's always been jealous of me. She probably fabricated these filthy accusations. He lunged for the documents in Maya's hand, his eyes blazing with desperation. But Ms. Albright, quick as a flash, stepped between them, shielding Maya and scooping up the papers. No, sir, Ms. Albright said, her voice unusually firm. These are very real. Just then, two plainclothes police officers, discreetly positioned at the back of the ballroom, moved forward, their movements swift and decisive. They were accompanied by Detective Isabella Rossi. Jeremy Thorne, also known as Julian Thorne, Detective Rossi announced, her voice calm and authoritative. You are under arrest for multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and violation of parole conditions. Julian let out a high-pitched snarl, his carefully constructed facade crumbling completely. This is impossible! Evelyn, tell them! Tell them this is a mistake! But Evelyn's eyes were locked on him, blazing with a cold, righteous fury. She pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. "This is Dr. Evelyn Reed. I'm at the Grand Plaza Hotel, Ballroom A. I need police at my location immediately for active fraud and attempted grand larceny. I'm pressing full charges." She hung up, her gaze never leaving Julian's face. "Get him out of my sight," she seethed, her voice shaking with suppressed violence. "Get him out of my hotel, and I'm calling my legal team now to ensure you face every possible charge." Her entire body trembled, her hands clenching into fists. The rage was raw, visceral, fueled by betrayal, not just of her love, but of her reputation, her legacy, and the emotional safety of her daughter. Just as the officers began to lead Julian away, a commotion erupted at the back of the ballroom. Silas Croft, dressed in a simple dark suit, tried to slip out unnoticed, but Marcus, Evelyn's head of security, pointed him out to security. "That's his accomplice!" Silas was apprehended quickly. "She sees what she wants to see. Billionaires, like Evelyn, so used to controlling everything, are blind to what's right in front of them when it comes to love." Julian's chilling words, now revealed as the truth, echoed in the stunned silence. The ballroom, moments ago filled with the joyful anticipation of a wedding, now stood as the stage for a spectacular downfall. Evelyn stood motionless at the altar, watching as the man she was about to marry, the man who had promised to fill the void in her heart, was led away in handcuffs. The rage that consumed her was not just for the betrayal of her love, but for the danger he had brought to her daughter, her family, her entire future. Your mother's trust. It's a gold mine, Maya, a gold mine for my future, and I'm about to claim it. Julian had sneered this at Maya just days ago. Now his grip on that gold mine was broken, and his future was shattered. The hotel staff, discreetly directed by Ms. Albright, began to usher the bewildered guests out. Maya walked over to her mother, who still stood frozen. She tugged gently on Evelyn's gown. Evelyn looked down at her daughter, the fury in her eyes slowly softening into a profound sadness, then gratitude. She knelt, pulling Maya into a tight hug. "You saved me, darling," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You saved us." Curiosity, Maya, can lead to very unfortunate coincidences. Sometimes the most inconvenient obstacles simply disappear. Julian's veiled threat, now a distant echo. Maya had faced that danger head-on, and she had won. A month after that terrifying wedding day, Silas Croft, Julian's accomplice, was released on bail due to a procedural error in his arrest warrant. His legal team had successfully argued that evidence obtained during the initial search was inadmissible, creating enough reasonable doubt to secure his temporary freedom while awaiting trial. The news hit Evelyn like a physical blow when Detective Isabella Rossi, who had been leading the investigation, called her at 6 a.m. on a stormy Tuesday. "We've assigned additional patrol units to your hotel and business premises," she assured Evelyn. "But Silas is legally obligated to stay away from you and Maya. He's wearing an ankle monitor and cannot leave New York City without permission." Evelyn knew that legal requirements meant little to desperate criminals. Silas had seen his future unravel because of Maya's testimony. Desperate people did desperate things, a lesson Evelyn had learned all too well in the cutthroat tech world, but never expected in her personal life. The hotel security system, already top tier, received immediate upgrades to their penthouse suite. Motion sensors, reinforced door locks, panic buttons in every room, and 24-hour surveillance by Marcus's most trusted team members. Evelyn hired additional private security guards who rotated shifts, ensuring their temporary residence was never unguarded. But Silas proved to be more cunning than anyone had anticipated. The storm that Tuesday night was particularly fierce, with winds strong enough to fell power lines across the city. The Grand Plaza's backup generators kicked in automatically, but the power surge temporarily disabled several exterior security cameras on the upper floors, a window of opportunity Silas had apparently been waiting for. Evelyn and Maya woke at 2 a.m. to the faint sound of their security system's intrusion alarm. Evelyn's security tablet showed a silent alert indicating movement on the lower level of their duplex penthouse, but the affected cameras only showed static. "Stay close to me, darling," Evelyn whispered to Maya, who was already trembling beside her. They had practiced this scenario several times during security drills, but facing real danger felt entirely different. Moving carefully through the darkened corridor, Evelyn guided them towards the reinforced panic room she'd had installed within. Their suite, a secure space with independent communication systems and supplies to last for days if necessary. But when they reached the spiral staircase connecting the two floors, they heard the unmistakable sound of someone moving through the main living area below. Silas's voice echoed from the main living area, distorted by rage and desperation. "I know you're here, you little brats, you and your rich old lady. You ruined everything." Evelyn's formidable intellect, usually applied to billion-dollar deals, kicked in. The panic button in her pocket would call the police immediately, but the response time in this storm could be 15 minutes or more. The safe room was their best option, but getting to it required crossing an exposed area where Silas might see them. "I've got nothing left to lose," Silas screamed, his voice getting closer. "Julian's locked up, my life's ruined, and it's all because one little girl couldn't mind her own damn business." Maya pressed herself against Evelyn's side, her small body shaking with terror. But when she spoke, her voice sounded surprisingly firm. "Mom, I know another way." During her weeks exploring the sprawling penthouse suite, Maya had discovered passages and spaces Evelyn didn't even know existed. Behind a hidden bookshelf in her father's old study upstairs was a narrow maintenance corridor connecting to unused service rooms from the hotel's original construction in the 1920s. "It's super small," she whispered, "but we can hide there until the police get here. It's too tight for him." Trusting her implicitly, Evelyn followed Maya through the hidden passage. The space was narrow and dusty, clearly unused for decades, but it was invisible to anyone who didn't know it existed. They could hear Silas moving systematically through the suite, checking rooms, growing increasingly frustrated. A crash sounded somewhere below, likely a priceless vase or a sculpture thrown in anger. "They have to be here," Silas muttered, his voice piercing through the old walls. "The helicopters. Still on the helipad. The security lights are on." The ankle monitor that was supposed to track Silas had apparently been circumvented, or the storm was interfering with the signal. For 20 agonizing minutes, they waited in the cramped space as Silas ransacked the suite. Maya remained remarkably calm, her survival instincts honed by months of quiet observation. She showed Evelyn how to position themselves to avoid floorboard creaks, how to control their breathing to minimize noise. "You're very brave, darling," Evelyn whispered, marveling at this child who had already survived more trauma than most adults. "Dad always said, scared and brave aren't opposites," Maya replied quietly. "You can be both at once." Finally, they heard sirens approaching through the storm. Red and blue lights flashed through the tiny hidden room's window as police vehicles surrounded the building. Silas's voice turned desperate. "This isn't over! You hear me? This isn't over!" There was a crash, followed by shouting, and then the distinct sound of a struggle. Heavy footsteps moved through the suite, this time accompanied by police radios and authoritative voices. "Upper floor clear!" someone shouted. "Suspect in custody!" Another voice boomed. When the familiar voice of Detective Inspector Rossi called their names over the suite's intercom system, Evelyn and Maya finally emerged from their hiding place. They found Silas Croft handcuffed in the main foyer, his ankle monitor clearly visible and apparently still functional, confirming he had somehow bypassed the signal during the storm's peak. "How did he get past the security perimeter?" Evelyn demanded. Rossi's expression was grim. He approached from the East Riverside, taking advantage of the storm surge. He scaled the building's maintenance access during the worst of the weather. We didn't think anyone would be crazy enough to attempt that in these conditions. But Silas had been exactly that crazy, desperate enough to risk everything for revenge against a 7-year-old girl who had simply tried to save an innocent woman's life. As Silas was led away, this time facing additional charges including aggravated trespass, harassment, and violation of bail conditions, he turned back to Maya one last time. "You should have minded your own business, kid," he snarled. "Some secrets are worth killing for." Evelyn pulled Maya closer, both of them understanding that while this immediate threat was over, the trauma would linger. But they had faced it together, and somehow that changed everything. By morning, Detective Inspector Rossi would tell them. Silas's bail had been permanently revoked, and he would likely face federal charges for the ankle monitor violation. The immediate danger had ended. But for now, as the storm winds howled outside and the emergency vehicles departed, Evelyn and Maya sat together in the library, both grateful to be alive and safe, and both understanding more clearly than ever that they needed each other. 4 months after that terrifying wedding day shock, Maya faced her biggest challenge yet, testifying in court against Julian Thorne. The New York County Supreme Court, a grand edifice of stone and bronze, loomed like a fortress of justice, its imposing architecture designed to inspire respect for the law. But for a 7-year-old girl, it felt more like a terrifying labyrinthine maze. Evelyn had spent weeks preparing her for this moment, working with victim advocates and child psychologists to ensure she understood what was about to happen. They had practiced in mock courtrooms, role-played with friendly lawyers, and discussed how telling the truth, even when it was scary, was the most important thing she could do. "Remember, Maya," explained District Attorney Eleanor Vance during their last prep session, "you just have to say what you saw and heard. Don't worry about anything else. Your mother will be right there in the room and I'll ask the questions." But knowing what to expect and actually facing it were entirely different experiences. The courtroom was packed with reporters, legal observers, and spectators drawn by the sensational nature of the case. Julian sat at the defense table in a conservative navy suit and a carefully cultivated expression of aggrieved innocence, looking every bit the respectable financier rather than the calculating con artist he had proven to be. His transformation was so complete that Maya had to do a double take to recognize the man who had almost ruined her mother. Silas, facing charges in a separate but related trial, would testify later as part of a plea bargain. His lawyer had negotiated reduced charges in exchange for his full cooperation, a fact that had added another layer of complexity to an already intricate case. When Maya's name was called, the courtroom fell silent. Evelyn squeezed her hand as Maya walked to the witness stand, her small figure dwarfed by the formality of the proceedings around her. The bailiff had to lower the microphone to her height, and the judge spoke in soft tones that seemed almost out of place in the austere setting. "Maya, do you understand that you are here to tell the truth about what you saw and heard?" asked Judge Elias Vance kindly. "Yes, sir," Maya replied, her voice barely audible despite the microphone's amplification. District Attorney Vance began with simple questions about Maya's background, establishing how she came to live with her mother, and the events leading up to the wedding. Maya's answers were clear and honest, describing her father's passing, her mother's loneliness, and Julian's sudden appearance. "And what did you hear on the night of the 20th of October?" Vance continued. Maya's voice grew stronger as she recounted the conversation between Julian and Silas. He said they were going to get Mom's money, all of it, and then frame her for his past financial crimes. He said his real name was Jeremy Thorne, and he had been in prison for fraud. The specific details of the fraud scheme, gleaned from the documents Maya had found, struck the courtroom with a jolt. Julian's lawyer, an elegantly dressed woman named Sophia Finch, objected frequently, arguing that a child's testimony was unreliable, but Judge Vance overruled most objections, noting that Maya's account had been corroborated by physical evidence and financial records. The hardest moment came when Finch cross-examined Maya, trying to confuse her about dates and times, suggesting she might have misinterpreted what she heard. "Isn't it possible, Maya, that you were just a lonely girl, jealous of your mother's new happiness, and perhaps you imagined some of these conversations?" she asked, with a practiced kindness that held an undertone of condescension. "No, ma'am," Maya replied firmly. "I know what I heard. He was lying to my mom, and that was wrong." Her simple moral clarity cut through the legal complexity like a knife. In that moment, everyone in the room, the jury, the spectators, even the defense team, could see the absolute truth in her testimony. When Finch suggested that Maya might have fabricated the story for attention or sympathy, she looked directly at the lawyer with those wise, serious eyes. "I didn't want anyone to know I was listening," she said quietly. "I was scared of him, but I couldn't let him hurt my mom. My dad taught me that doing the right thing is more important than being safe." The impact of her words was visible across the room. Several jury members dabbed at their eyes, and even the court reporter paused in her transcription. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Julian Thorne, revealed as Jeremy Thorne, was found guilty on all counts, multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. The judge sentenced him to 35 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for 20 years. As Julian was led away in handcuffs, he maintained his defiant attitude to the end. "This isn't justice," he sneered. "This is persecution of a man who simply sought a better life." But his words fell on deaf ears. Justice had been served not through revenge or hatred, but through the simple courage of a child who chose to do the right thing, even when it was terrifying. Outside the courtroom, as media cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, Evelyn lifted Maya into her arms. "Are you okay, darling?" she asked softly. Maya nodded, then smiled, the first truly carefree smile Evelyn had seen since this terrible ordeal began. "Can we go home now, Mom?" "Yes," Evelyn replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Let's go home." A year after that fateful morning in October, when a brave girl came forward to save her mother, Dr. Evelyn Reed's penthouse in New York City had transformed almost unrecognizably. Where once sterile, minimalist display cases had been designed to impress investors, now cozy, lived-in spaces invited life. The cold, abstract art that had dominated every room gave way to vibrant, playful canvases painted by Maya. The formal dining room, once used only for high-stakes business dinners, now hosted messy art projects, elaborate tea parties, and the occasional science experiment that Ms. Albright pretended to disapprove of while secretly helping. But perhaps the most dramatic change was in Evelyn herself. The driven CEO who once worked 18-hour days now left the office promptly at 5 hours, prioritizing Maya's ballet recitals over board meetings and bedtime stories over earnings reports. Her board of directors had initially worried about this dramatic shift in priorities, but Luminary Labs' performance had actually soared under her more balanced leadership. Turns out, she confided to her closest confidants during a rare late-night strategy session, that having something infinitely more important than work makes you better at work, not worse. The legal proceedings finally concluded with a satisfying resolution. Julian received 35 years in federal prison, while Silas, who had cooperated fully with prosecutors, was sentenced to 10 years for his role in the conspiracy. Both would serve their time far from New York, ensuring Maya's safety and peace of mind. More importantly, the formal adoption documentation for Maya, solidifying Evelyn as her sole legal guardian, had reached its happy conclusion. After months of home visits, background checks, and psychological evaluations, Judge Isabella Rossi, the same detective who had spearheaded Julian's arrest, had signed the final documents, officially making Maya a permanent part of the Reed family. "It's rare," the judge had commented during the quiet ceremony, "to see such a clear case of a child and a parent meant to be together." On this anniversary morning, exactly a year after Maya had shocked the wedding, Evelyn had planned a special celebration. She found Maya in the breakfast nook, carefully arranging a miniature solar system model made of painted styrofoam balls. "Today's our special day," Maya announced with 7-year-old solemnity. "The day I saved you, and you saved me." Evelyn smiled, marveling at Maya's ability to see their relationship as a mutual rescue rather than a one-sided charity. In truth, Maya was entirely right. Maya had saved Evelyn from far more than Julian's con. She had saved her from a life of solitary success, from relationships built on deception, from the empty victory of achieving everything except what truly mattered. "I have something for you," Evelyn said, pulling a small wrapped box from behind her back. Maya's eyes widened with excitement as she carefully untied the ribbon, a skill she'd learned from Evelyn, who believed in savoring special moments rather than rushing through them. Inside was a small, intricately carved wooden telescope, bigger than her palm. "What's it for?" she asked, holding it up to catch the morning sun streaming through the kitchen windows. "Come see," Evelyn replied mysteriously, leading her through the French doors to the private terrace. There, nestled in the corner of the vast rooftop garden, where Maya once had practiced her sneaking, stood the most magnificent observatory New York had ever seen. Built of glass and steel, it was large enough for several people, but designed with a child's wonder in mind. Complete with a retractable dome, a powerful telescope for spotting distant galaxies, and, most importantly, a perfect view of the Grand Plaza Hotel where their story had begun. "It's ours," Maya gasped, her voice filled with awe. "It's ours," Evelyn confirmed. "A place where we can always remember how we found each other, and all the stars we can still discover." They climbed up together. Maya scrambled with the fearless agility of childhood, while Evelyn followed more carefully, still adjusting to the idea that her expensive suits were meant to be lived in, not preserved. The inside of the observatory was everything a curious child could imagine. Built-in benches with soft cushions, shelves for books on cosmology and adventure, and windows placed to catch both sunrise and sunset. But the most special feature was visible through the main window. A clear view of the Grand Plaza Hotel, where a scared girl had hidden until courage demanded she reveal herself. "From here, you can always see where we started," Evelyn explained, sitting beside Maya on the window seat. "But more importantly, you can see all the places we could go, all the knowledge we can unlock." Beyond the hotel, the view encompassed the sprawling Manhattan skyline, the majestic Hudson River, and the distant promise of the world beyond. It was a view of infinite possibilities, a perfect metaphor for the life they were building together. "Mom," Maya said suddenly, "do you think Julian regrets what he did?" The question surprised Evelyn. Even after everything, Maya's capacity for empathy remained intact, a remarkable resilience that spoke as much to her father's influence as to Maya's own essential goodness. "I don't know, darling," Evelyn replied, honestly. "But I hope that someday he finds a way to understand that hurting people never solves anything." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city awaken around them. Distant helicopter blades whirred in the breeze. Seagulls called to each other from the rooftops, and somewhere in the distance, children's laughter drifted up from a nearby park. "I used to think," Evelyn said slowly, "that success meant building the biggest company, making the most money, impressing the most people. I spent so many years focused on achieving things that I forgot to build a life worth living." Maya considered this with the seriousness she gave to all important conversations. "Dad used to say that things don't make you happy. Discoveries do, and doing the right thing makes you proud of yourself, even when no one else knows." The wisdom of those words struck Evelyn with renewed force. Maya's father, though gone, had raised a daughter capable of risking everything to save her mother. That kind of moral courage wasn't taught in business schools or corporate seminars. It was cultivated through love, example, and a deep understanding that character mattered more than comfort. "Your dad seems to have been an incredible man," Evelyn said softly. "Yeah, he was," Maya nodded. "But I think he would have liked you. You care about people. Your employees, Ms. Albright, me. Dad always said, that's how you know someone's heart is good." As the morning sun climbed higher, warming their special sanctuary, Evelyn reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought them to this moment. A year ago, she was preparing to marry a man who wanted to financially ruin and frame her. Today, she was planning a future with a daughter who had saved her life simply because it was the right thing to do. The irony was not lost on her. She had spent millions on security systems, background checks, and legal protections. But her true salvation had come from a 7-year-old girl with nothing but courage and moral clarity. "Maya," Evelyn said finally, "there's something I want you to always remember. That day, you didn't just save my life. You gave me a reason to live. It." Maya looked at her with those wise, earnest eyes that had seen too much sadness, but somehow retained their capacity for joy. "Sometimes you have to lose something to gain something better," Maya said with the profound simplicity only children possess. Evelyn smiled, remembering how Maya had used almost those exact words a year ago. Her empty penthouse had filled with laughter. Her sterile success had transformed into meaningful purpose. Her solitary achievement had become a shared adventure. Most remarkably, her carefully controlled life had been beautifully interrupted by spontaneity, wonder, and the daily chaos of raising a child who approached each day as a new opportunity for discovery. "Ready for our first official day as the Reed family?" she asked, standing and offering her hand. Maya jumped up eagerly, already planning adventures in their new observatory, already thinking about tomorrow's possibilities rather than yesterday's fears. "Ready," she declared with a smile that could power the entire city. And as they climbed down from their elevated sanctuary into the garden below, both of them understood that while their story had begun with danger and deception, it would continue with love, laughter, and the unshakable bond between a woman who'd learned that family was more valuable than fortune, and a little girl who'd discovered that courage could create its own kind of magic. The Grand Plaza Hotel stood unchanged in the morning light, a silent witness to the miracle that had unfolded within its walls. But everything else, their hearts, their home, their hopes for the future, had been transformed by the simple recognition that sometimes the most important family members arrive in the most unexpected ways. In the distance, church bells chimed the hour, and Dr. Evelyn Reed and her daughter Maya headed inside for breakfast, their shadows intertwining on the path like the lives that had found each other against all odds and chosen, despite every reason, for fear to build something beautiful together.